Oh, it should show up. Come on now. Stand by. Hey, blasphemers. Welcome to Simple Blasphemy, where we have the best times with the worst topics.
We're three friends that discuss everything and nothing, from wacky headlines to games and trivia. All subjects bizarre and risque are on the table.
Our weekly guests range from friends, musicians, and artists to professionals in a variety of industries.
We go live on Facebook and YouTube every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Want to support the show? Join our Patreon. You can find it and more at www.simpleblasphemy.com.
So grab a drink and join in!
It's too late now. This is Simple Blasphemy.
Swear the next time I play a live show like that, I'm gonna fucking I'm gonna Zach Wild all over that shit.
Welcome to the Simple Blasphemy podcast, all you blasphemers out there. My name is Zach Ward, and I have here with me always Andy.
I have the second longest hair in Simple Blasphemy. You're welcome.
And also Mr. Green.
Hi.
Oh boy. Okay. And just before we
it's on?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh,
You could- And just before we introduce our special guests, all the info on the show, including episodes, guests, can be found at simpleblasphemy.com. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing. This is our first Twitch broadcast, and apparently it's fitting because Jason does bedabble in that arena. Anyway, Mr. Jason Charles Miller is our special guest. How you doing, Jason?
Good.
Welcome.
Actually, thank you. Actually, I'm trying to host you right now. 1 second.
This is the kind of guy Jason Charles Miller is he will host you.
He will host you. Maybe
You're
not.
hosted. Consider yourself
I've been
hosted.
hosted. Holy
Now-
shit.
I've watched the movie Alien. I think that means something different. I don't know. Was that
Until that,
No,
yeah.
actually, it's exactly the same thing. There will be a
Okay.
symbiote on your face momentarily.
Expect some kind of expulsion in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Did you ever have a communion host placed in your mouth?
Oh boy.
That's another.
You're not supposed to bite down or chew on it. You're supposed to let
No,
it
you're
melt
supposed to just kind of go.
in your
Right,
mouth.
You're supposed to let it dissolve in your mouth.
I've heard people suggest that, not to go too off topic here, but the host, especially in Catholicism, is literally the body of Jesus, and one would hope that
Literally.
you didn't come across the toenail or
Listen,
I
we-
bring unto you-
We're off on a horrible foot already.
yes, we are.
Hey.
So to
The
get on the
toenail
right
of Jesus.
Right?
to get on the right foot, let's get to know Jason a little bit better with a free for all 4 questions. Jason, here you go.
Right.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
to time travel.
Really?
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Is there?
Yeah. Let's.
Where's the first place you go then?
Well, first of all, I would do the Biff thing. And I would just bet on sports games until I became a billionaire.
Sports almanac.
Right.
Yeah.
I always joke about that with people. I'm like, where's
I love it.
Marty Sports Almanac? But no, I'd visit all sorts of different places in history, I think. You know.
Would you try to remain incognito, or would you be like, "Hi, I'm the knight in King Arthur's court," or the
I tell
instrument
you
in King
what I
Arthur's
would
court?
do is I wouldn't try to change history.
No.
That's
Because
good.
it's already been done, right? So anything
Indeed.
that you do to try to prevent, if there's one thing that time travel shows have shown us, is that whatever you do to try to prevent the thing in history from happening, you then usually accidentally cause it to happen.
So it's the monkey's paw.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I would agree with you too. If I were to time travel, I would just want the confirmation of the knowledge that I had. You know what I mean? Or I was taught. So that
Totally.
would,
You were totally wrong about that shit. She did have herpes. Woo!
well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, the winners usually write the history books. So, all right. So, question number 2: what age do you consider old?
I mean, at this point in my life, probably 70.
Good.
I've
Very good.
because I've seen people well into their 60s still like do amazing, like things that are like contribute and like can change society. You know?
Bernie
So,
Sanders.
All right.
Sorry, I said that.
Yeah, sure.
Well.
He's like 78 now.
All right.
I've been selfish since the day I came out of my mother's womb.
Okay, dokie.
What do you guys think? What is your answers?
What?
What are your
He's
answers?
asking us what our answers are.
Yeah.
Go,
Oh,
Zachary.
I see what you mean.
Consider old.
Yeah,
Boy,
good
that's
job.
that's a tough one.
Superpower?
No,
Nope.
Oh, I got
Old.
superpower.
I would have to say that late 70s, 80s is probably.
I remember something was happening in the family, and I'm like, oh, wow, how far in the future is that? And my mom's like, well, you'll be 14 when it was like some graduation from school or something that I was going to, one of my uncles, and my mom's like, oh, you're gonna be 14. I remember thinking to myself, oh my god, that's so old.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No, I mean, I remember thinking, by the year 2000, I'll probably like be married with children and all this stuff. That didn't happen at all.
You're married with the guitars.
I'm definitely married with guitars.
So, question number 3: what terrible movie do you love?
Ooh, I guess it all depends on.
It's subjective what terrible is.
Right. I know. I'll tell you
Don't
this.
say troll 2. Don't say troll 2.
Okay.
Ugh.
No, I'll say Leprechaun in the Hood. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, Leprechaun in space.
In fact, I gave one of the few times that I hung out with Ice-T, I gave him shit over being in Leprechaun in the Hood, and he actually didn't like that. He was like,
Because
man,
he came back. He bounced back
he
totally.
was like, my character was cool, man. He was a pimp. And I'm like,
Gangster rap made me do it.
Yeah,
I think that would be the correct Ice-T quote.
Well, I'll tell you this on Amazon Prime, they have a bunch of old sword and sorcery movies from like the 70s and 80s that are actually amazing to watch.
Lady Hawk?
Now.
That's not a
No.
sword and sorcery movie.
I'm talking like the Beastmaster series, but then Deathstalker and Deathstalker 2. I highly recommend those movies. Now, it's probably good if you're drunk or high.
Both of them.
Or both. But what's crazy about it is that in Deathstalker 2, you could tell that maybe Deathstalker 1 wasn't released in certain territories. So they used all these establishing shots that you remember and knew from Deathstalker 1, and they used them again in Deathstalker 2. And you're like, hey, wait, didn't I see that pig monster at that bar eating that exact turkey leg in Deathstalker 1? Didn't we die later in the movie? And it's like,
holy crap, they mirrored it.
Yeah, I guess they owned the rights to it, so they just reuse so many scenes. So it's just really funny to watch them both back to back.
Noted.
That's what I would say.
So
That's like going from Highlander 1 to Highlander 2. There's a complete a differentiation between those two movies because you go from having this linear progression of sword fighting to 8 million backstories.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is it Highlander 2 that people just say to ignore? One of them they just say ignore completely. Right?
Should you watch Highlander the series though? That's okay. That's what I'm going to kind of back that up against because I liked Highlander 2, but because Sean Connery and you know.
Right.
All right. Let's do the last question here. Jason, what is the worst job you've ever had?
Probably working for a moving company. That's
Okay.
pretty brutal because it's just nonstop labor and really early in the morning to, it gets dark and it's a grind and it's grueling. So I'd say that when I worked for a moving company.
Did you have jobs where you actually had to actually pack for the people instead of just moving the boxes?
No.
Because there's some companies that will pack for you. I understand, and that's just got to be.
Yeah, no. I didn't work for a company that did that.
Did you ever help a friend move, thinking that you're just going to show up in the morning and move some boxes, and then you get there and all of a sudden nothing's packed? It's
14
drawers.
14 refrigerators.
Did that happen with one of these guys?
Oh, it used to happen to me all the time, man. I was like, God damn it!
I told him that if he ever moved to Toledo, I'd help him move all of his fucking arcade cabinets. And I did. Did I?
You did. But I had.
But like not a lot. I didn't work that hard.
No, I took care of them.
All right, so let's go into the shout out really quickly here, folks. We're trying to get good at shouting out to people that are tuning in, and country coming in number one once again, second time in a row is India. So everyone in India, thank you for tuning in. United States is number two on that front. Austria, United Kingdom, and Canada, Germany, France, Belgium, Colombia. Thank you so much. And because India is number one, the number two city is Denver, Colorado, once again. So thank you guys for tuning in. And next up, we have, let's see here. Where am I at? Did I already lose this?
I think you're between two beautiful looking acoustic guitars, or that might be Jason. Could you tell me about those two guitars next to you while he's
in just one moment? So now we have the shout out from Tanner Wirtz. Here we go. Hold on.
What's up, guys? This is Tanner Wirtz. I want to give a big shout out to Drano because they get all the pubes out of my drain all day, every day. I have a lot of pubes.
Holy shit, thank you.
We don't always condone this, but
what did I agree to exactly?
Yeah. I don't know what's going on. Thank you, Tanner, for your weekly contribution. Here we go.
So many at one time.
I know that was coming.
So let's dive in all things Jason Charles Miller. What was it like for you, and how did your music career start to develop?
Well, it was it was really interesting because I guess when I was 17, I started playing in clubs. I mean, but I really started performing in front of live audiences when I was like 5 or 6. Mainly school stuff. I wasn't like and then I would start to do community theater, and then I really started getting into rock music and wanting to be in a band when I was like 14 or 15, something like that. And didn't start playing guitar till I was 14, but like very quickly was able to, get in some bands that were established and playing in like the DC, Baltimore area, and just from an early start always wanted to perform.
Yeah. And did you have any, because it has to be said that you have a phenomenal lower vibrato that most people just don't have. You've got this like, and it's one of the favorite things I love about listening to your music. Did you develop that, say, in like choir or any kind of vocal training?
I think, I had vocal training, but I think that the vibrato was something that happened early on because I was just lucky, I suppose, because I remember being in a band with one of my friends, and he didn't quite know how to describe what I was doing. So he just kept asking me to have less soul in my voice. He's like,
Could you be more mechanical?
soul? You know? And I thought that was pretty funny.
So
I always got told my guitar playing was robotic. So yes, could you please not?
yeah, often we say that to like drummers, like for crying out loud, can be a little bit more.
Would you sound like you're part of Kraftwerk?
I remember being told to play sloppier. I think from that point, I was just like, I'm done with this fucking live music bullshit.
Dude, you're one of the most technically proficient motherfuckers I've ever heard, though.
Yeah, I do it for fun though, but
Oh, God.
So now we go into like Godhead starts, right? And
Right.
it
Well,
became
we were a band. First, we were called Blind, and I was going to George Mason University, and our first gigs were in '92. Our very first gig was like at the Rathskeller, at like the Rat, the sort of restaurant / like place where you get sandwiches on campus.
Nice.
And then we caught the attention of like a local manager that managed sort of a big metal band in the area called Havoc, not the same Havoc that's out now, but HAVOC. And once we got a manager that really like, we started touring regionally, we started touring nationally, and this is all before we had a record deal or anything like that. And then in '94, we got signed by a German label, and had a record out in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. This is back when, you got to get that? This is back when like everything was sort of promoted territory by territory. There was no iTunes or Spotify or barely an internet,
right.
But there was a band in Europe with the name Blind. So that's when we changed our name to Godhead in like '94, the end of '94.
Did you have something, Andy? You look like you wanted
No. It's nothing. Well, because the idea of Godhead, a lot of people need to know about that. So where did you guys get your meaning of Godhead?
Well, so people say that Godhead, is like the closest thing that you can be next to God.
Yes.
So for a lot of people, like it's what their focus is, right? And so for us, like music is Godhead.
Mhm.
But really first discovered the name in the back of Fantasy Gamer magazine. It was like Dragon magazine, where it would come with an adventure in the back.
Yeah, totally.
Adventure. And
those were the ones on the top shelf at my local food town.
Great. I think I had to go to a specialty novelty shop to get it. I couldn't get it at Food Town. That's awesome. Dude, you had it easy.
I had a pretty good. Whoever was buying the magazine rack was doing a good job.
It was like a high level adventure, and whoever grabbed the Godhead became like you won that adventure. So I always thought that was the coolest thing, and that was the coolest name for a band. And I remember that like our first drummer didn't like. I wanted to call the band Godhead right from the start, but our first drummer was like, "No, people will think we're a Christian band or something. So let's not do that. Let's not pigeonhole ourselves." So I relented, but then when we had a chance to change it, and what do you know, we had a different drummer by that point. Boom, no one to stand in our way.
Yeah, but 92 or so, that was like the precipice of like heavy metal Christianity, that music that was coming out, following like DC Talk and the Newsboys. All of a sudden you had screamo Christianity. So I could see where that would come into play.
Yeah, he had a good point. I mean, he had a point. It was fine.
All I could say is that they tried. They really tried.
So it blows me away. I mean, I started listening to Godhead because my preference would be more so industrial music than others. That many people that know me, I do so much solo acoustic cover songs that they would probably be shocked.
Do you want to you live on the other side, Zach?
Yeah, but I'm a huge Beatles fan as well, and they still play your version of a classic Beatles tune that on Beatles Radio. And I don't know if you're familiar with BeatlesRadio.com.
You?
What's that?
Cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, like rather often. So
What's
not
Beatles
to
Radio?
shout out for Beatles Radio, but all they do is play anything Beatles or covers or solo career of the Fab Four, right?
Nice.
So it always sparked in the back of my head every time I was kind of like working or was listening, and all of a sudden your version comes on. I'm like, oh hell yeah, totally, yep. And then he started going down the Godhead wormhole, because I loved like God Lives Underwater and a couple of the side, industrial stuff.
Jason, what he's trying to say is that he's a really big fan.
I like it a lot.
And then that on the way up to the airport, because I'd heard your name, but I'd never heard your music, he played it for me the entire way, which was great. I really did like it. It wasn't bad at all.
A couple years ago, but
That was a couple years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry there weren't any like Dragon Force solos in it, but we had.
oh,
Oh,
so the only really question I have about Godhead is, going into the industrial portion of music, how did you guys create that? It seems like it's more intricate and more involved than, say, four guys with a singer, bass, guitar, and drums. It seems like it's you obviously were messing with timing and quantizing and stuff like that. How was it like the first couple albums that you guys were recording?
That was all like it was everything, every sound we could make on the ASR10. Our keyboardist slash bass player Uli, we just found sounds and samples that we liked and just messed around until we found stuff that sounds cool. I wish there wasn't really a formula to it, because we tried to do it as differently as we could every time.
Was there any influences? To me, that seems so much newer. Especially I graduated high school in '96, so it seemed like a new genre that. Yeah, you had Animat, and we could go down an '80s rabbit hole of different things. But what influenced you?
Like back then, like The Cure was a huge influence on me. Earlier industrial acts like Ministry, some early Nine Inch Nails for sure. And then like KMFDM, Einstein de Neubauten, Lords of Acid too. So, yeah. But I think the difference was that earlier Godhead started as a 3-piece, so we were more of like just a darker rock band, and then when Uli joined is when we started adding industrial elements to it.
Right.
So that we sort of had an established sound and then started adding salt and pepper to it. You know what I mean? And then that sort of is what eventually became whatever our sound was.
Gotcha. And I guess the last question for me would be, you had a unique opportunity to be signed with Marilyn Manson's record label. And how did that all come about? Was it just touring and
Yeah, it was touring. And I think Metal Edge magazine did a feature on us, like a small feature that had like a page for unsigned bands. And we were featured on there, and that apparently caught his attention. And then his manager came to see us play when we were on tour with Christian Death in '99. And then they offered us a deal. It was pretty sweet.
That's pretty cool.
So, Andy, do you have any other Godhead stuff? If not, we can move on to...
No, I honestly dove into it a couple of weeks ago because I had just been exposed to what little Zach gave me. I can listen to it. And that takes a lot from me because I'm horrible. I have horrible taste in music. I really do.
So
Terrible.
let's move into what I call uncountry section here. That's the album I got after Jason. We were at, well, I was at the NAMM. Andy, you're probably there with me at the NAMM show, and I see Jason, because I'd follow him on Facebook, started messaging that he's going to be walking around the NAMM show, and I sent you a message like, "Hey man, I work for Reverend Guitars. I'm going to be there too." And then Jason, you came back like, "Is Reeves going to be there?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I got a great picture of you, me and Reeves from, I don't know, man, it's probably like 6 or 7 years ago. But you went from this industrial thing. So what was the transition, leaving the rock thing and then started the uncountry, as I guess I like to say?
Yeah. Well, for as intricate as Godhead sound was when things started winding down with that, and it's not like we ever officially broke up. It's just that things just kept spiraling downward. Like if you listen to our albums in order, we put so much time and energy and effort and like art into each record, but each time after, so we were on Marilyn Manson's label, and then we weren't. And basically what happened was when acts are given or like when artists like Marilyn Manson are given a label, they're often they don't put up their own money. They often find a company to do that for them.
Right.
So Post-Human Records was actually a division of Priority Records. And Priority Records, about halfway through the promotion for our album, they were owned by EMI at the time, and the head of EMI decided they were going to merge Priority into Capitol. So we ended up, all of the staff that was working behind the scenes for our record, which is working behind the scenes is so like mega important even today. If you don't have a good team behind promoting you, you just don't know like what there's just so many deals that happen and relationships that managers and agents have with each other that if you don't have your team, you're kind of treading water. So anyway, we went from being on Priority Records with a whole staff that knew us and was working our record and promoting it, and working with the radio promotions guys and all that too. Now we're on Capitol and they don't want us. So we ended up on Capitol and then ended up getting dropped like right away. So then we had 3 more albums on 3 different labels that were like startup labels. So every time we would put out an album, we felt so artistically satisfied with it, but economically they did worse and worse. And that's just demoralizing to a band.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so if you listen, if you go back and listen to like the last album that we did as a full band was called At the Edge of the World. And if you go back and listen to that still stands up today. I mean, they all still really stand up, but it just sort of got lost in the shuffle. So when I decided to start doing solo work, I said to myself, I want to do something that is completely different stylistically. And for as complicated as Godhead's music is, I want to do something really simple, like just a voice and a guitar. Because before Uncountry was actually an EP I did called Last to Go Home, which was almost all just acoustic guitar and vocals. And because I just wanted to break it down and do it completely different. And I was very, I love country music. And so I thought I would just do my own style of that, and move on to like the latest album that I did for Sony, which is called In the Wasteland. I think if you're a Godhead fan, Zach, you could probably hear on this latest record where I kind of go back to some of that stuff. I don't know if you could pick up on
Absolutely, especially the video, and you also the theatrics, and it is
that'll never. Yeah, I can never escape that. That's always a part of me. You know, not that I want to escape it, I don't, but that will always be a part of me. And so now, like for my latest record, which isn't out yet, you know, I'm kind of just doing whatever I want.
Yeah,
it fits loosely in like the Southern rock category, but
so for anybody that's listening here today, you can visit jasoncharlesmiller.com, and everything that we're talking about, you can pretty much find a resource or a link. So that's jasoncharlesmiller.com. Just only because we always try to be mindful for the audio people as well, you know, that they don't see what we're seeing.
Right.
I give them a bunch of credit. I think they have really good imaginations.
One thing, I really enjoy all of your music. I probably should buy more of it. I'm guilty as charged on that one. But you can really hear the passion and the work ethic. And for as many albums as you've put out on top of other projects that you've done, where do you find the gumption to like just persevere through, especially the internet and you know,
this motherfucker said gumption.
That's awesome.
It's true.
I love gumption. You know, I think half the things I do are fueled by gumption, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, you know, there comes a certain point where you don't do anything. Like if you're doing something to try to get rich or something, you don't worry about that anymore. You just have a calling, I suppose. Like it just becomes something you always end up wanting to create something new and just continue to put things out there to the world. I never had a thought about giving up, just doing something new and just trying it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So when let's do the D&D thing really quick as well, because there's so much ground to cover. And amidst all of this creative, you know, music, you also had is it still going, the series for the D&D?
Well, I got a couple things. So,
okay,
are you talking about Starter Kit?
Starter Kit's the notable.
Starter Kit's done.
How did that happen?
Now, well, okay. So what happened there was about 10 years ago. My friend Greg Aronowitz, he's a production designer in Hollywood and a director. He recommended me to work with Felicia Day, and Felicia Day had a very successful series called The Guild. And through working with her and making a song for her show, that kind of opened the door for me working with a lot of people in that circle and sort of just becoming known in that circle, which for me was like a duck to water because I've been playing D&D since I was 8. I happened to be doing it in like, you know, a house in the middle of nowhere in Virginia, but I still and mainly created characters because I didn't have very many people to play with, but I pored over those books as a kid. And so fast forward to Felicia launches her new company, Geek and Sundry. And then they were one of the first companies to start streaming on Twitch. Besides video games, they were streaming people playing role-playing games.
Wow.
So I had written some songs for some of those shows, but then got asked to be on a show, and that was called Foreververse. and we would jump from game system to game system. That was like part of the appeal of the show. So we would play all these different game systems while like thousands of people watched live. And from there, that's when Starter Kit came about, because the head of Geek and Sundry at the time was like, they had a really huge show that I wrote the theme song for, called Critical Role. Mm-hmm. And it's well known as like the #1 most watched Dungeons and Dragons show weekly. Like, it's crazy. They get 100,000 live viewers.
Wow.
It's insane. You know, like their episodes are.
It's Monday Night Football for D&D players.
Right. It's Thursday night. But that's what they call it.
It's Thursday night.
Like their hashtag is, you know,
roll
day yet. You know, so yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right, Andrew. It is just like Monday Night Football to anybody that loves D&D. And so the head of Geek and Sundry, a guy named Sean Becker, was like, look, like, everybody loves Critical Role, but I don't play D&D, so I don't know what's happening. Why don't we make a show where we teach people how to play? So that's where Starter Kit came from. And then from that, we started doing other systems too in other seasons. So we did 7th Sea, the pirate game. We did Phoenix Dawn Command, Numenera, Vampire the Masquerade. And then we did another season of D&D at a higher level. And through all that, I met everybody that works at D&D now. And like Luke Gygax is a good friend of mine, who's Gary Gygax's son.
Yeah,
nice. We're about the same age. And you know, I've participated in so many awesome D&D events. When I was on tour last year, I actually did I have another show that's out right now on the Dungeons and Dragons, the official Dungeons and Dragons YouTube channel, and it's called On Tour with Dragons. And what it did there was I visited different gaming stores across the country. So I basically did like a diners, drive-ins, and dives, but stores. And I interviewed the owners and like the community leaders and different people. And that was a blast too. It was really great.
Took them right to Flavor Town, I'd imagine.
I did.
And where if anybody wants to look that up, how can they find that information?
Please.
Okay, so Starter Kit is on the Geek and Sundry YouTube, and it's also on Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime, just type in Starter Kit, and 5 out of our 6 seasons are on Amazon right now.
Good.
And then On Tour with Dragons is, if you just type in, if you go to the Dungeons and Dragons channel on YouTube, it's right there.
So Neverwinter Nights is Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Rule set.
Because I was huge into not only
they're making another one of those, are they?
But yeah, they are.
That's Baldur's. No, it's Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate. But they did make a new Neverwinter Nights. There's an online game called Neverwinter Online.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm a bunch of voices in that.
Yeah.
Actually,
Okay, so here's my
go.
question. Please let me take over for like the last 7 minutes that we have. I started reviewing video games when I was 10 years old. So I've been doing all of this stuff. And when they started incorporating voices in like original PC games, when you got beyond the sound cards that could actually do stuff like that. And then Super Nintendo did like Clay Fighter, and you got all these really awesome voice actors that did stuff. How the hell did you become a video game voice actor that it was known for? And hang on a second, like Shenmue and Mafia and World of Warcraft and Diablo 3 and Days Gone, and I could just keep punching. And then earlier in the show, and you said that you couldn't say anything about this, is that you have a couple of really awesome games that will blow my mind that you cannot announce.
No.
NDA. How did I get into it? I
Yes.
pursued it, man. I pursued it, and I took classes. And what sparked the interest for me was I ended up writing with the Godhead guys. We wrote music for a commercial, and somebody needed to just sing "Oh yeah" on the top of this song. Oh yeah. But by me singing it, that got me into the Screen Actors Guild, and that got me thinking that I could really pursue this. So I took classes. I, beat feet, got an agent, all that stuff. I mean, the reason I was a little bit late for sound check was I was finishing up some auditions that I needed to send off to my agent. We audition for stuff almost every day. And what's really cool, and what I'm really grateful about, is during the quarantine, the voiceover work has been very steady for me, because that's one of the
everything's going there.
Yeah, because no one has to leave anywhere. So the director will direct me remotely, and I'll use my own studio.
We often make the jokes. I'm sure almost no one ever gets, Elf has shot the food.
I didn't even do it.
Sometimes we just do it for ourselves.
Needs food badly.
Do you have that game, Zach?
Gauntlet? Oh yeah.
I have the newest.
Gauntlet?
Oh yeah.
What game?
Gauntlet's that's too
No,
old.
I don't have that one. That's the tail end of when I stopped collecting. But no, it's still a classic.
When did it come out?
Yeah.
God, it's got to be. It's probably 83.
So they did come out with a new version of Gauntlet, which I want to say maybe 7 or 6 years ago for PC. I enjoyed it. It has all the same.
You're talking about that damn Gauntlet game again?
Yeah, it's the sound. The sounds are all the same. It's just an updated version.
I like having the tactile response of being able to actually hip check the motherfucker next to you that's playing the barbarian because he's not doing shit right. Like when you played Ivan Iron Man's Off-Road, and you'd be spinning the wheel around. You're like, you know what? I'm just gonna butt into this asshole next to me and see what happens.
So
1985. That's why it's.
That's why you don't have it. That's why you don't have it.
It's still a classic.
that was I think that video
the
game
original Gauntlet, the 4-player one where the people gather around the cabinet.
Atari,
yeah. The 4-player thing was a little bit more advanced.
God, what a fun time.
So, we have a lot of people that are, I don't want to say in the music business, but are musicians, and I just feel them asking me to ask you that how does one optimize? Or, I mean, obviously there's no like golden arrow that makes everything work right, but
you were gonna say golden ticket.
I was trying to stick with Gauntlet.
Veruca, darling, I'm not a magician.
So, speaking upon what we were just talking about, gumption, if somebody out there is a guitar player, a musician, or a composer of some sort, what is the best advice you could ever give somebody that you found that's kind of worked well for you? Other than like, don't be a dick was probably a good one. I've noticed that you can't be mean in the music business, but what would you say to those people?
Well, look, pursuing these opportunities are extremely difficult. If I hadn't been living in Hollywood for the last 19 years and hadn't just been letting people know about who I am, or had agents that let people know about who I am, or went to this party at this place, or went to this premiere at this place and met people, that's really, unfortunately, that's the key, I think, to my success, is just meeting new people all the time that are successful in the industry and being able to work with them on certain projects. And then that's when the calls come in. Like when you find out about a game, that when a game has been announced, it's already too late to get something, so like for somebody to try to break in, I don't know what that formula is for somebody who's not me. And I don't mean that in like an egotistical way. I just mean that like I know the path that brought me to where I am, and it was just a constant sort of it was networking 101, and I was actually talking about this with a friend of mine, and I was like, you realize now, because of COVID, whatever network we're in it. Like our circle is now closed for the next year, in a good way and in a bad way, because we're not going to be able to go to a party and meet somebody who's the producer of this or that, or the agent of this and that. That's not happening, you know? And so we're only going on recommendations from other people who already know the work that we do. And so I wish that I could give an honest piece of advice on what people should do. I just don't know.
Well, that's it. It's networking. So also, when did you start your own studio? Because clearly you needed to have one to be optimize your time and produce content for all these different, things that you're working on. What was that process, and how did you, was there, I started off this way, then I upgraded this, and I found out that maybe
started in 2004, but owning my own studio, and a commercial studio, that was huge. I mean, I can look at, so for example, a friend of a friend needed to rent my studio for one day because they very quickly needed to record a vocal track with a young Noah Cyrus, Miley's younger sister.
Right.
And Billy Ray showed up at the studio to listen to Noah's track. I was in the next room jamming on a song with my friend Derek. Billy Ray Cyrus comes walking into the room and says, "Y'all sound like you're playing something Southern in here." And then we became friends.
Yeah.
And then I ended up co-producing 6 songs on his 2016 album, because just like things sort of naturally happen when you're in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. And, he's now a really dear friend of mine. But I don't know if what other opportunity would I have had to meet him other than that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, right,
So,
right.
like, there are these weird moments that happen in your life out here in this town that are just unfathomable and unrecreatable. I was at a party for a publicist friend of mine, and she also was the publicist for comedian Andy Dick. This was back in like 2003 or 4. And I met Andy Dick that night, and it was literally the weirdest thing, because he was like, "Oh, you're a musician, you have a studio, you should work on some songs for my movie." And I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." I'm saying that like with a straight face, but in my mind, I'm like, Andy Dick is not going to call me. So I give him my number. The next day, Andy Dick calls me, and I ended up producing 5 songs for his movie, recording Anthony Rapp. And then Andy actually put me in the movie. It was a Comedy Central movie called Danny Roan, First Time Director. It's really funny. Like Ben Stiller's in it, Jack Black's in it. If you can, it's probably on Netflix. If you can see it, watch it. It's just really funny.
So I have to tell you this.
Yeah.
My one of my bandmates, Alan, he was just telling a story how they ran into Andy Dick at Woodstock, and you can tell Andy Dick that somebody still has his Birkenstock that they actually stole from him as he was crowd surfing. True story.
That sucks. One shoe.
Yeah.
But I'm
was
just
it him?
saying, like, so those kind of things like just happen but being a good person, being talented, being able to back it up, right? Because if Andy Dick had called me and the stuff that I did for him sucked, he's never going to call me again. Or if Billy Ray asked me to work on a track for him and what I made for him he wasn't impressed with, he's not calling me again, right? So it's like that weird golden triangle of like being obsessed enough with your craft to be able to make something quality at all times, but then having the opportunity to make that. And that is unquantifiable. It's so hard to explain what happened. I mean, yes, there are, for example, there are a lot of video games that I'm in that, yes, I auditioned for through my agent and I got booked on it based solely on my performance. There are other games that I have been booked on based on the fact that I didn't even have to audition for it. The director or the producer already knew what kind of work I could do and gave me that role. Right. And so I would say I get booked way more on those from past experiences that I had with people than based on the blind audition stuff.
You are very well word of mouthed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and
people will use their mouths on you.
So, Mr. Zach Green usually is pretty quiet during interviews, only because he doesn't like
talking.
He doesn't like talking when people are telling their stories, because we love stories like this, especially being Midwesterners. Green, do you have any? I just want to make sure you.
Do you want to scream really loud?
Question or something or anything?
No.
Anything?
I know you mentioned something about Days Gone, or Andy did. I just finished that video game not too long ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll trade you for Ghost of Tsushima when I'm done with it.
The funny thing about the funny thing about Days Gone for me is that in that game, primarily I'm not even. It's only my voice that's in the game, because I'm the voice of all the scientist, where you're trying to discover different things on how to solve the game, and then you find these recordings of a scientist that's like, talking himself and talking about. I don't want to spoil the game, but you know what I'm talking about, right, Zach?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So I'm like one of those.
That's awesome.
I'm one of those scientist recordings that you find. I'm also a few various thugs here and there, because then, like, when they're done with all the
additional voices.
Yeah. When you're done with all the scientist lines, and there's still a half hour left in your session, they're like, okay, well, we're gonna have you be thug number 3 here, and
we're gonna get our money's worth. Damn it!
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Good.
I enjoyed that game immensely.
Is there going to be a Jason Charles Miller book about your whole experience through life? It sounds like you have enough content.
Can you call it the JCM 900?
Isn't it
or 800? It depends on your liking. I like a 900.
Or 2,000 years of Jason
by Marshall, shouldn't I?
Just some
JCM 2000.
But I'm actually endorsed by Black Star, and I love them. So, and a lot of them used to work at Marshall anyway, so it's kind of the same thing.
They did. They're kind of buddies of Reverend's. The Black Star people gifted us a nice half stack at one point, maybe 7 years ago, and those guys rule.
That was my preferred amp to go through.
Yeah, those guys
Black
rule.
Star?
Yeah,
nice, man.
He got. I like the Black Star a lot, but when he got the high watt, I had to try that a few times. That was
Yeah, we had the full stack high watt with two 15s and then 4 10s.
Yeah, it was necessary to try.
Overkill. And like, I'm so anti that personally, because my buddy Frank just got me Line 6's Helix whole VST. Unbelievable. If you are a guitar player and you're recording digitally, that Helix software package, you cannot beat it, man. I mean, that is unbelievable.
Yep.
Anyway, well,
fantastic.
I think we've reached the end of this one.
God, I'm glad you could make it, Jason. Thank you very much for this.
Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry to the listeners too that I missed last week. So I had too much going on at once.
We were talking so well that I forgot to even put up the pictures I had prepared. So if any of the video people are watching, there's Jason and Godhead. And then I was supposed to cue these up, but stupid me. And then and also with our D&D starter pack. So
awesome.
Guys, check it out. I'd like to throw up the banner just one more time. Jason Charles Miller. He's just an artist, just like so many people. If you can support what he's doing, feel free, please, with his music or whatnot. But it's all on the website, so that's just what it is.
I have a new song out that just came out last week. I mean, if we want to talk about deep nerd stuff,
please.
So some friends of mine who used to work at Geek and Sundry now have their own sort of group called the Stream Punks, which I think.
Oh,
And
I know I see that. Good.
they stream. They have a Star Trek game called Clear Skies, and they have a Klingon game, a Klingon show called Blood of the Void. And I wrote and composed the theme song for Blood of the Void, and I'm even singing in Klingon.
oh,
Nice.
that's a totally different level.
That's a consonant heavy. You really need to cut down on them high end things there.
Wow.
Chucky, now like.
Yeah,
Is
you
it?
can check it out. There's a lot of in there, but when they're singing, not so much. So,
Is there a Klingon for simple blasphemy, or is there an equivalent?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Okay.
I had to look it up. I had to look up phrases and then like sort of piece together.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Don't put yourself through anything.
Is
like
there
that.
a college course to learn this?
I think there is actually.
There
I think MIT has one.
I'm gonna link you guys the video to it. The opening credits for the show are quite impressive, and it's actually one of the guys that works on Star Trek Online, which is cool because I'm also a voice in Star Trek Online.
That's insane.
Kind of nice for that all to.
And I gotta ping off this really quick because I see that you were in the Final Fantasy VII remake,
There we go.
which is pretty awesome because that was like a
Yeah, there you go.
seminal voice
You
in
get that?
my video
Oh.
game beginnings.
You private chatted that one. Jason, now that you're saying this really quickly, what's the video you did with the young lady that you guys did like a gamer?
Muted for me for some reason.
What's the music video you did with the lady that you guys are doing like a video gamer / song that you did?
Can you step that over because you were muted to me for 1 second?
Oh, the music video, the song that you did with another lady that was about gaming. And
Gamer Girl Country Boy.
yes.
Yeah, that was with Felicia Day. We did that later when she started Geek and Sundry.
Yeah, check that video out too. I mean,
That was super fun.
really enjoyed that one. All right, well, I think we're done here. Jason, thank you once again. And the next time NAMM rolls around, I'll try to come see at the ESP booth or Takamine, I believe.
If it rolls around.
If it rolls around, this next year is not going to happen. I guarantee you that.
So January, you don't think it'll happen?
No, there's no way.
I guess that's the thing. It's like Halloween events were already canceled because there's so many months have to go into preparing for it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, they canceled Summer NAMM. I think I was supposed to be there last week, and I just don't see with all the countries flying into LA that's gonna like be allowed.
No,
Especially Canada, you can't even go across the border at all. So, we're a big component of everybody being safe and make sure that you just don't be a dick. Just take your precautions.
don't be a dick
mask.
nose.
Yeah, just wear your mask and just respect people's space. I guess I don't know.
Quit sniffing buttholes.
Yeah, well,
No,
if you have a mask-
everybody's like, no.
if you have a mask on, maybe three-ply mask.
3-ply mask.
Other than that, folks, that's the show. Thank you so much for tuning in for Simple Blasphemy, and we will see you next week.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Be